Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
How wonderful to be back in Port Elizabeth again. It seems like a long time. Hare Krishna. Can you hear?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. Yes, well, how nice to be back with you all again. And we have brought with us one nice devotee from another part of the world. This is His Grace Adi Keshava Prabhu here, from Irkutsk. You know Irkutsk, right? No. East Siberia. See? Wow. Impressed. And there, what's the temperature now?
Now is minus 20. It was minus 40.
It's minus 40. It gets cool there. If the heat here gets oppressive, you can go there. So anyway, he's a nice kirtandita, as you experienced last few minutes. So that's good. And he's come here to get the association of all of you. Nice devotees. And we hope you are all happy in Krishna consciousness. Are you happy in Krishna consciousness?
Yes.
No one's in Maya? Well, you may have heard we are going to do for the next 4 days, today's Thursday, then Friday, Saturday, and in the Sunday program also, we are going to do part one of a multi-part seminar on the demons in Krishna's Vrindavan Leela and the anathas they represent. Can someone turn off their cell phone? So, I can't remember, at least since Swaitadri Prabhu has been here, we haven't done this. I can't remember if we did in the more distant past, but even if we did, that's okay, we can do it again. It's a very interesting subject. Of course, all devotees are always very fond of Krishna's pastimes. They're such wonderful pastimes, particularly Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. They're really amazing, very sweet and relishable, and all sorts of different things happen. Some beautiful interactions with his parents and the parental devotees, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj and the various others, parental devotees, all their friends and relatives. They're all in the parental relationship with Krishna. And then there are the cowherding pastimes. They're all with the cowherd boys, and the great majority of them are in the friendly rasa, Sakya Ras. So those sorts of pastimes are also very nice, somewhat different. And then there are the conjugal pastimes, the rasa dance, and related pastimes with Lord Krishna, with the gopis, the younger gopis. And they are the topmost, actually, of all the Lord's pastimes. And they are the sweetest, most amazing pastimes in which the greatest degrees of love for Krishna are manifested and displayed. And we can learn from these things. Of course, particularly the conjugal pastimes, Krishna with the gopis, they are difficult for people who are not devotees to understand. And they often, or just almost always, become bewildered, thinking that it's just a typical boy-girl thing as we get here in this material world. We know all about that. And they think that Krishna is just some young boy, and Srimati Radharani and the gopis, they're just some young girls, and it just, those types of things are going on. But we know, the devotees know, that it's very different. That in the pastimes, in the relationships of Lord Krishna with the gopis, there is not even a hint of any material lust, that male-female attraction of this material world. It is conspicuous by its absence. So, and what to speak of non-devotees, if they ever hear about these things, becoming confused. But even sometimes some types of devotees become confused, particularly those who are not followers of Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya is the combined form of Radha and Krishna. And he came, of course he came to give the Sankirtan Yajna and to help people in this Kali Yuga to make progress in Krishna consciousness, which otherwise is extremely difficult or even impossible. But on a deeper, more internal, inner type of level, Lord Chaitanya came on one hand himself to experience the nectar of the Radha Krishna pastimes from the position of Srimati Radharani. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahe Anya. Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya is none other than the combined form of Radha and Krishna. But particularly, Lord Chaitanya is the Lord in the mood of Radharani. So Radharani is more predominant. He's in the mood of a devotee. And he wants to experience what it's like to be a devotee, and not just any devotee, but Radharani herself. Yes. So through Lord Chaitanya, people, if they take shelter of Lord Chaitanya and understand him, at least try to understand him, and if they take up the process of devotional service as he taught it, and read the explanations which he gave, and which his closest followers like the 6 Goswamis and people like that gave, then people can really understand Radha and Krishna. Otherwise it's extremely difficult. And even we get, I don't know how many of you have read Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a most amazing experience. So there, Lord Chaitanya he was in South India. He spent 6 years traveling in South India, more or less immediately after he took sannyas. So Lord Chaitanya, during those 6 years, one of the years, during the rainy season, Lord Chaitanya went to Sri Ranga Kshetra, that is in northern Tamil Nadu, or quite deep South India basically. So he stayed there during the rainy season at the house of a devotee called Vallabha, Venkata Bhatta, who was one of the main pujaris in the temple of Lord Ranganath. And that temple is the biggest temple in India. Biggest temple in India. So he was quite a prominent devotee, very important family. They were, and to this day they still are, the traditional worshippers of Ranganath on the altar and Lakshmi Devi. So they're really quite a family. So that Venkata, he was convinced, as are the people in his line generally, that Lakshmi Narayan are the highest features of the Lord, and Radha Krishna are just Leela. Krishna is just a Leela expansion, like a Leela avatar of Narayan. And Radharani is like a Leela expansion, lesser expansion, not complete, of Lakshmi Devi. So Lord Chaitanya then proceeded to explain things to him nicely, but it was an eye-opening experience for Venkata. He really thought that Radha and Krishna are less, and Lakshmi Narayan are more. They're the ultimate. So anyway, we're just saying, all these different types of pastimes are there with these different types of devotees. And then there are also the pastimes of Krishna killing the demons. In fact, they're prominent in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. A greater part of the description of the Vrindavan Leela in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, a greater part is Krishna killing demons, more than the other types of pastimes. Interesting, isn't it? So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given very interesting analysis in a book of his called Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita, the Nectarian Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He's given very interesting description of all the different demons that Krishna encountered in his Vrindavan Leela. And basically there are 21 of them. And he has explained that these demons represent different anathas. You understand this term anatha? Artha means something useful, and anatha means something useless. Yeah. Even there are the 4 purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. in the Vedic tradition and in Hinduism, although it may not, people are not really so tuned in these days to the sort of the real traditional background concepts which are there even in Hinduism. But these are called the four Purusharthas, or Purusharthas. Means the four worthwhile goals for human beings. Dharma, to be religious, materially. Artha, on the basis of that, to acquire material opulence and facility. And then third is kama, not karma, but kama. Means, basically indicates the process of sense gratification. It means desire, fulfilling desire, enjoying, like this. So you do your dharma. As a result, you get your artha, your material benefit. You acquire some, but from the material point of view, some materially useful things. And then with them, karma, you enjoy. But, however, there is then a fourth one, moksha, liberation. And the idea there is, it's an interesting idea, that after trying to enjoy, because you got all your money and maybe even elevation to higher planets and whatever else, from your material religious activities, your material gain, your acquisitions, and then you enjoyed them, karma, and then you found out that it was not as enjoyable as you were expecting. Oh, looked like it was going to be enjoyable, but actually we got a little enjoyment, then we got frustration. Some years ago, several years ago, one very nice devotee, friend of our movement in Durban, came to pick me up from the Radharadhanath temple to take me to his house. We're going to have a house program there with devotees and guests and friends. So we're driving out of the car park up to the top onto the road there by the front entrance. And what should happen? Well, he had picked me up in his nice, brand new, shiny BMW. Actually, someone drove us to the airport today in their brand new BMW, which had done 250 kilometers. Yes. So this devotee picked us up in this brand new 7 Series, the biggest, fancy. He was obviously very proud of it. And he'd only driven a few hundred kilometers, and he was sort of showing it off, that, oh, it's like this and that. So we drove up onto the road, and someone came driving out of the car park across in front of us on the road. We had to stop to let him pass in an old, antique BMW 7 Series, which is like a good 20 years old plus. Same type of car, but just old. Exactly the same. And the car, that car broke down right in front of us and blocked the way. And we had to get out and help push the car out of the way. And then we got back in the brand new one, and you could see it had a sobering experience on that man. Because that's where his car is going to be going. And actually it's going to be going further. It's going to be going to the rubbish dump sooner or later, actually. So this is material life. And according to those Purusharthas, religious activity, acquire material things and then enjoy them. it's understood that in that process you don't really enjoy them and you become frustrated, then you want moksha, liberation. Give it all up, because it's only worth giving up, and then go for something higher, liberation. Anyway, so anartha, things which are not advantageous, things which are not really assets, actually they're liabilities. They act against us. This is anartha. Some obstacle, some problem, some challenge, something bad, something wrong. This is anartha. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur then in that book, Chaitanya Shikshamrita, he explains that each of the demons who Krishna encounters in his Vrindavan Leela represents a particular one of the main anarthas, the main obstacles, the main distractions from Krishna consciousness, the main things that can go wrong, or that you can allow to go wrong, or you could become attached to, confused by. Each one represents one of those. So it's very interesting study. On one hand, we can relish some interesting pastime of Krishna. On the other hand, there's an important lesson to be learned from it. So, this is good. Not just storytelling and not just philosophy. A nice mixture. So, let me just read here, 2 sentences from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Practicing devotees understand that these pastimes are like negatively tinted reflections of the eternal pastimes in the kingdom of God. And such sincere devotees hope that by the influence of understanding the purpose of Krishna's performance of different of these pastimes, their own various anarthas or unwanted material contaminations will be destroyed. And part of that idea is, as each demon represents a particular anartha, unwanted thing, obstacle. So hearing about Krishna killing that demon helps to remove that anartha from our hearts. So you see, very nice. So now there are 21 demons in Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. Some of them are not exactly demons, but people, even devotees who became demoniac just under certain particular circumstances at the time. Like, for example, the Govardhan Leela. Lord Indra in the Govardhan Leela is one of these pastimes. And Lord Indra in the Govardhan Leela, he represents the anartha of thinking that demigod worship is higher than worship of Krishna. That's a particular anartha, at least for some people. It's an obstacle to their progress in devotional service. They really think that we must worship demigods, even though in some cases we're also worshipping Krishna, but we must also worship demigods, otherwise something will go wrong, something inauspicious will happen. So what we'll do right now, the first thing we'll do, I'll read through all these 21 and just tell you what anathas they represent. First demon, who remembers who was the first demon who tried to kill Krishna but Krishna killed in his Vrindavan Leela? Devotee. Putana. Putana, yes. Putana represents the pseudo-guru. How's that? Isn't that interesting? The false guru, who can be of two types. One is just a person who's claiming to be guru like that, but actually that person is teaching some untruth, some misleading philosophy, like we're all God. You are God, I'm God. And, well, of course, there's so many different variations. But this is a typical example of a pseudo-guru, a false guru. They're supposedly in the role of being a guru, a teacher in spiritual life, but they're just cheaters. As we've noted before, the word teach and the word cheat in English, you just take the T and the CH and you just change them positions. And teacher becomes cheater. Yes. So that's one type of pseudo-guru, false guru. And the other, you know what the other type of false guru is? It is our mind. Our mind, which tells us, you know, do this, do that. This will be good. That will not be good. Don't get up early in the morning. You know, don't force yourself. And don't chant so much. You must do it in a natural way, when you really feel you want to. If your mind ever tells you things like that, it's being a pseudo-guru. Watch Bollywood, it's okay, no one will see you. And you know, this is a very popular movie, so it's okay. Once in a while, relax. That your mind is being the pseudo-guru. Number 2 is Shakatasura, the cart demon. And he represents the tendency to carry the cartload of bad habits accumulated from your conditioned life. Misconceptions, wrong ideas that you acquired before. So carts, of course, carry loads, and he was in the form of a cart, or else he was on the cart. And so he represents a cart load, carrying a load from the past of useless desires. Number 3 was Trinavarta, the whirlwind demon. And he represents the false, well, not just false pride, but the bewildering effect of misleading philosophies on innocent people who don't really understand. They hear some exotic philosophy. I am you, and you are me, and we are all God. Presented in very clever ways, and they become confused. This is that anatha. Number 4 is the deliverance of Nalakuvara and Manigriva, means the Damodar Leela, and the deliverance of the two young demigods. They represent the anatha of becoming puffed up because of wealth and high birth. Number 5 is Vatsasura, the calf demon. And he represents anathas, either anathas that children themselves get in their Krishna consciousness. Yeah. That the children who are devotees, there are different challenges facing them in their Krishna consciousness as children. And also anathas connected with children, usually of parents or people who are dealing with children. Then number 6 is Bakasura. Remember Bakasura, the stork, long-legged, semi-aquatic bird. He represents hypocrisy, deceptiveness, false behavior, being two-faced. Number 7, Agasura, the snake demon. He represents envy and cruelty. Then number 8 is the Brahma Vimohana Leela. And of course Lord Brahma is the problem there. And Lord Brahma is not a demon at all. In fact, he's the head of our Sampradaya. But he somehow became bewildered, and he stole the cowherd boys and calves of Lord Krishna. So there, this represents the anatha of thinking that the opulent manifestation of the Lord is higher than the sweet manifestation of the Lord. Or in other words, that Vaikuntha Leela is higher than Vrindavan Leela, like that. Or Lakshmi Narayan are higher than Radha and Krishna. Number 9 is Dainakasura, the donkey demon. And when we do that, we will want one of you boys to demonstrate the sound that a donkey makes. So just so you're aware, you can practice a bit. And Dainakasura represents the anatha of the mode of ignorance, just forgetting about Krishna. The influence of tamagun, too much sleep, and things like this. Then 10 is Kaliya. And Kaliya, of course, he was a demon, and he tried to kill Krishna, but Krishna did not kill him. Of course, Krishna didn't kill Lord Indra, neither did he kill Lord Brahma. We call the seminar Krishna killing the demons. Well, he doesn't really kill them all. He certainly kills the demoniac consciousness, which is the essence of what a demon is. But Kaliya was not killed by Krishna. Kaliya serpent. He represents poisoning the hearts of devotees by gossiping. Yes, gossiping about some devotee. That you know that. You know Madhupati, right? Well, you think he's a nice devotee? Well, just let me tell you the truth about him. And then out comes some poison. He's like this and that. And then the next time you see Madhupati, previously you're thinking, oh, what a nice devotee. But next time now your mind is poisoned. Now you see him and you think, oh, there he is. That bad devotee. So this is a very serious anartha, and it's a very nasty anartha. Then number 11 is the first forest fire. Krishna extinguished 2 forest fires, as described in the 10th canto. So the first one represents discord between devotees and different groupings of devotees. Like, just as an example, our guru is the best. He's better than your guru, and therefore we are the best. We're better than you. So in this way, discord arises. Our guru is the most senior. Our guru is the most advanced, and yours as well. He's okay, he's not too bad. But anyway, not a bad second best, not too bad. So in different ways, discord arises among devotees and groups of devotees. Number 12 is Pralambasura, who represents basically the mode of passion. Anarthas arising from the mode of passion. Number 13 is the second forest fire, and it represents the influence of atheism. Number 14 is the Brahmins performing sacrifice. If you know that story, their wives came eventually, and they were devotees, and they provided food for Krishna and the cowherd boys. But the Brahmins themselves, they would not feed Krishna. So that represents the anartha of becoming puffed up because of one's position in varnashram, or the caste system. Like, we are patidas, and you are mochis. If you're from Gujarati background, you know exactly what I mean. And so on like this. We are Brahmins, Desais, Joshis, and you, you're just something else. Number 15 is the Govardhan Puja, overcoming the pride of Lord Indra, and we said represents the anartha of becoming attached to demigod worship and thinking it's more important than devotional service to Krishna. 16 is Nanda Maharaj stolen by Varuna. And this represents very interesting anartha for some people, thinking that our spiritual lives can be improved by taking intoxication. We will smoke dhaka, and then we'll have a good kirtan. 17 is Nanda Maharaj being swallowed by the snake. And it represents the anartha of Krishna consciousness being influenced by impersonalism. 18 is Shankachuda, the demon who had the gem on his forehead. And he represents the anartha of trying to increase our material enjoyment through Krishna consciousness. Not exactly that. But the desire to enjoy under the plea of devotional service. Number 19. Well, like for example, a young male devotee or an older male devotee Whenever some lady, new lady comes to the temple, he must preach to them. New men may come, and well, let someone else. But when a lady comes, especially some nice young lady, oh, he's there. Must preach to them. And if you say, look, why don't you let the ladies preach to the ladies? Then he may say, Prabhu, we are preaching Krishna consciousness here. We are not these bodies. But actually there's something else going on. Number 19, Aristasura, the bull demon. And he represents false religion. Number 20 is Keshi, the horse demon, and he represents the anatha of thinking, I am a great devotee, and then you get up on your high horse. And last one, 21, Vyomasura, the sky demon. He represents the anatha of associating too much with just like thieves, dishonest people, rascals, people like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that except for Dhenukasura and Pralambasura, who represent the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion, except for them, the anathas that the other demons represent, they can be removed just by chanting and by just continuing on in devotional service. But particularly the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, you have to really work hard to get free from them. So let us begin. Let us begin by talking about Putana. Putana came when Krishna was very small. He was not able even to crawl. He was just lying in his cradle, and sometimes he'd turn, but he was not able to turn over and actually crawl, what to speak of walk. So he's very small, maybe just some days or weeks old. Actually, we're not really told exactly how old, but just, days or weeks. Putana's interesting. In her previous lifetime, she was Ratnamala, the younger sister of Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj took the whole universe from the demigods, and Lord Vamana came and tricked him and took it all back. So anyway, Putana, there's a very nice benediction. Putana is described in the 6th chapter of the 10th canto. There's a nice benediction, 10:6:44. Ya etat Putana moksham, Krishnas yarbakam adbhutam, Shrinuyach tradaya martyo, Govinde labate ratim. Any person who hears with faith and devotion about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Putana, and who thus invests his hearing in such childhood pastimes of Krishna, certainly attains attachment for Govinda, the Supreme Original Person. That's nice, isn't it? That's what we want to do. We want to develop attachment for the Lord. So if we listen very nicely, then to this pastime, which we'll now describe, then it will help us develop attachment within our hearts for the Lord. So the pastime begins, the chapter begins, chapter 6 of the 10th canto. Nanda Maharaj is in Mathura. He has just paid his taxes, annual taxes. And on the way out, who should he meet but Vasudeva, who is his relative and someone who's really close to him. They're very close. So they meet on the road, and Nanda Maharaj stops and they talk. And Vasudeva says to Nanda Maharaj, he says, you better get back to Vraja very quickly, because I'm afraid, I think something inauspicious is about to happen. So go, get back there right now. So Nanda Maharaj goes racing off. And this is actually from Mathura. He now has to go to Gokula. Gokula. It is, first of all you've got to cross the river. And then at some distance to the south, when you're across the river. So Nanda Maharaj, he's now making his way back to Gokula and wondering, why did Vasudeva say that? What could go wrong? I don't think anything inauspicious would happen. It's very strange. Then he arrived back home, and actually now Putana was already dead. Putana was already dead. But this is how the description unfolds. And there's this massive body of Putana. She was 20 kilometers tall. 12 miles. It's sort of 19 kilometers. That's pretty big. And there's this 20-kilometer long dead body of this monstrous looking demon, a really ghastly looking demon, just lying there. And Nanda Maharaj thought, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing, I can't believe it. How did Vasudeva know that something like this would happen? And the Bhagavatam says, Nanda Maharaj thought, Vasudeva must have mystical powers. He must have mystical powers. Of course, it's not true. Vasudeva did not really have mystical powers. But he just knew that Kamsa had sent out demons to kill the children who had been born in the last few days. That was why Vasudeva said that. It was not some premonition or some, mystical type of phenomenon. But it's an interesting point that in material society, there's so many people who think that, for example, Krishna, even there's so many Hindus, they think that Krishna is a mythological character. Yes. And that his pastimes, and for that matter, Lord Shiva and all the demigods, there's so many stories of them doing superhuman things. But there's so many people, and even so many Hindus, who think it's all mythology. Just fairy tales. Fairy tales like sort of allegorical tales, fables. just made up stories which are constructed. The story is constructed in such a way to make a point. The whole idea is not the story, the whole idea is the point, and the story is just tailor-made to make the point, whatever the point may be. But it's just made up. It's not true. So many people think that the pastimes of Krishna are not true, that he did so many superhuman things. And they think that generally because they don't understand how it happened and how Krishna or whoever the hero is, how he could do things like that. And they think, well, I couldn't do it, so it must be undoable. The standard is me. Whatever I can do, we accept. Whatever I can't do, it must be fictitious. But this is an interesting example. Nanda Maharaj didn't understand how Vasudeva knew. There was a way that he knew, and it wasn't sort of mysterious, it was just the way he knew. But Nanda Maharaj thought, oh, maybe he's a magician. He has mystical powers, can see the future. So actually these powers that Krishna has, they're just his powers. He's just very powerful. And we should just try to appreciate him like that and not become confused. Anyway, so then the story is told. Kamsa instructed these different demons to go kill the children, and he instructed Putana, kill all the children that have been born in the last few days in the cities, villages, and pasturing grounds. She was a Kechari. It means a type of a witch who can sit on the branch of a tree, the broken branch of a tree, and fly. And you know what Prabhupada says in the Krishna book when he's describing this exact Putana? Prabhupada says, in remote parts of northwest India, there are still women like this. They're still Kecharis. And you know where northwest India is, don't you? That's Gujarat. So watch out for the Gujarati women. You might see one flying around sometime. And there are many stories. You know, there are stories even from within ISKCON of things like that happening. Witches, witchcraft, mystical powers. In the early days in Mayapur, they're just beginning the construction, and they noticed that every night some building materials were being stolen. So they called this one man, he's meant to be a mystic, and he can, you know, understand who's stealing from you or who's against you, and then you can do something about it. So they called this man in, and they got all the workers and lined them up, like 50 workers or some substantial number of workers. And this man, with his stick, he had his magical stick, sort of like a club. He went up to each of those workers, about this far, 2 inches away from the worker's face, and shook the stick and just looked in their eyes. Really, bit of an experience. So one by one, he went down the line, And then he was in front of one worker down the line, and he did that. And suddenly the stick jumped out of his hand, and the stick beat the man down to the ground and returned to that man's hand. Hare Krishna. And even Prabhupada warned that in Mayapur you have to be careful at night, because in Mayapur there are Brahma Rakshasas. They're ghosts who previously were Brahmins, but they became degraded. And Prabhupada said they hide in the trees at night. And when people walk by, sometimes they jump on them. So, Hare Krishna. So Putana entered Vrindavan, 12-mile tall witch, just with fangs and just bizarre, complete, incredible looking being. But of course, she's Kechari. She has mystical powers. She transformed herself into the form of a beautiful young girl or young woman, like 20, 21, 22. And very beautiful, extremely beautiful. She looked just like Lakshmi, like overpoweringly beautiful. And not just beautiful, like who? Aishwarya. Like Madhuri Dixit used to be in the past. Not just beautiful, but she looked saintly. She looked angelic, of high character, pure-hearted, and not just some, low-class sort of prostitute-like movie star from Bollywood. But she looked just sweet and adorable and respectable. So she walked in, and she walked into the house. Just walked in. And the houses in those days, and even to this day to some degree, in India, they were quite different from how houses are nowadays. They were, they were built around a courtyard, and they're basically all these rooms that open onto the courtyard. And there was men's quarters and women's quarters. And even when the men and women were married, they did not share the same quarters. The men stayed in the men's quarters, and the ladies stayed in the ladies' quarters, surrounding a courtyard. So, you know what happened? Putana, in this incredible disguise, walked into Nanda Maharaja's personal room, his private room. Now, you can imagine, ladies, if some unknown and very good-looking young woman went walking into your husband's room, what might you think? Anyway, we'll leave it up to you to think what you might think. But Mother Yashoda, who was right there, she thought, this girl is just so sweet and so saintly, it's okay. No problem. And of course they all were thinking that Krishna was so extraordinary. They were all thinking sometimes, maybe he's Narayan who's taken birth. Sometimes they'd think like this. And when they saw Putana, they thought, maybe it's Lakshmi coming to visit her husband Narayana. So they just let her enter Nanda Maharaj's quarters without stopping her, asking, who are you, can we help you, who are you looking for, what's going on. They didn't think to ask. And of course their standards in terms of male-female dealings were extremely high. Extremely high. You know, we mentioned married men and married women wouldn't share the same rooms. And for example, you may have heard, actually we described, I think, in our Ram Leela seminar a few years ago, how when Sita was kidnapped by Ravan, at that time Hanuman arrived on the scene. Well, they met Hanuman just shortly after Sita was kidnapped. So Hanuman had not seen Sita. But then Hanuman offered, recognizing this is my Lord Ram, Hanuman offered, we'll find her. Me and all my monkey associates will find Sita. We'll find Sita. So Hanuman asked, he didn't want to ask Ram, describe your wife to me, because Ram was too upset. So he asked Lakshman, please describe your brother, your sister-in-law to me. And Lakshman said, I can't. I don't know what she looks like. And Hanuman, little taken aback, he said, no, I'm talking about Sita. I want to help. Sita, your sister-in-law. Please describe, what does she look like to me, so I can recognize her if I find her. We're going to look for her. And Lakshman said, no, I can't. I can't describe her. I don't know what she looks like. And Hanuman got a little agitated and said, look, I'm trying to help you, please. Just tell me what she looks like. And Lakshman said, I cannot. I don't know what she looks like. I've never looked above her feet. Oh, it's your special car. Yes. How nice. Just so we don't fall asleep. So Lakshman said, I don't know what she looks like. I've never looked above her feet. And then he gave a very beautiful description and detailed description of her feet, because he had seen her feet and studied her lotus feet. And when Hanuman jumped to Lanka, and in different ways he's trying to understand, is this Sita or is it a Rakshasi? You know, he showed the ring and she recognized, oh, it's Ram's ring. But, you know, Hanuman thought, well, you know, she could have guessed or something. Or maybe she has mystical powers. She read my mind that this is Ram's ring. But then he looked at her feet and he saw the markings on her feet. And then he understood, must be Sita. So it's an interesting point that how strict they were in male-female dealings, even between husband and wife. And what to speak of others. But still they let Putana enter Nanda Maharaj's room. That's where Krishna was. Krishna was in Nanda Maharaja's room. So when Prabhupada explains, when she walked in there, she saw Krishna in the cradle. And she looked at Krishna, and two things happened. One was that she thought that maybe he's God. Somehow that idea just came into her mind. Maybe he's God. And Prabhupada makes the comment there that Krishna at the time was not even 3 months old. He's just days, weeks old, something like that. So Prabhupada makes the point. She got the impression, oh, maybe he's God. And Prabhupada says, some people say that you can meditate and become God. Prabhupada says, though Krishna had only been alive a few weeks, he had not had time to meditate and become God yet. So he must be God anyway, even without meditating to become God. This is proof that Krishna was God already from the beginning. So then, it's interesting, Krishna looked up and looked at her and closed his eyes. Our acharyas give 4 possible reasons why he may have closed his eyes. 1, he didn't like to see the face of Putana, who had killed many children. He just didn't like to see the face of a demon. Prabhupada said that if you look at the faces of the modern politicians, they're generally such demons. If you just look at their faces, you lose your pious credits, your good karma, just by looking at their faces. So, Prabhupada says, or the Acharyas say, one possible reason Krishna closed his eyes was he didn't like to see the face of this demon. Another possibility is that Krishna wanted to telepathically communicate with her, send her some message, give her some assurance. I'm going to kill you, but don't worry, it'll be all right. Third possibility, Krishna knew, here we have our first demon. I have to kill him because it's my mission. But the first demon is a woman. And to harm women is very bad, extremely bad. Women, children, and old men. Am I an old man? 61. Women, children, and old men should never be punished. They should even never be chastised, let alone, some physical violence, let alone killing them. According to Vedic standards, women, children, and old men are not punishable. So Krishna's looking and thinking, wow, this is my first demon. I have to kill her, and she's a woman. Oh boy, that's a shame. I have to kill a woman. It's not so good. And fourth reason, that he simply thought, oh, it's my nurse. And Prabhupada says, he took her like she was a nurse. So then Putana offered her poisoned breast to Krishna. Kalakuta poison. Enough poison to kill 100 elephants. That's serious. Not taking any chances. She offered her poisoned breast to Krishna. Because in Vedic times, and not even Vedic times, for other women to breastfeed other children, even I've seen it in South Africa, aunties and even just other women breastfeed children who are not their children. Do they do it in Port Elizabeth? Anyway, Hare Krishna. So yeah, she offered Krishna her poisoned breast. And Krishna became angry, thinking, this woman has killed many children. Because that was her profession. She was a professional assassin, a hit woman. And her specialty was killing children. Killing children by sucking their blood. Perhaps she is a forerunner of the modern day abortionists who make a living from killing children. So Krishna became angry because he understood this rascal demon has killed so many children. So Krishna sucked her breast milk. In other words, he accepted her as a mother, sort of. He sucked some of her breast milk. He sucked the poison, but then he continued sucking and sucked out her life. And as she realized what was happening, Putana panicked. And she cried out, child, please leave me, please leave me. But Krishna did not. He kept sucking. And she went running out. And then she collapsed on the ground on her back with Krishna on top. And as she collapsed, her usual body as a demon manifested, 12 miles long. Fortunately, she did not manifest that body inside the house. It would have been a problem, the end of the house. But as she expanded, she smashed trees and all sorts of things. And then there's this big 12-mile long body. And Nanda Maharaj came and thought, wow, Vasudeva must have mystical powers. So then, Bhagavatam doesn't describe, but Brahmavaivarta Purana describes how then the soul, or actually the spiritual body of Putana, came out of the material body. Yes, because when Putana was killed by Krishna, anyone who's killed by Krishna, they become completely purified. Totally purified. So she was now dead, but in a pure condition, and her spiritual form came out. So the description is, suddenly, leaving that gigantic body, Putana manifested a spiritual body. Then a chariot came from Goloka Vrindavan. A chariot decorated with 10,000 chamaras and 10,000 mirrors. A chariot full of 10,000 associates of the Lord. A chariot decorated with jeweled domes a chariot with 100 wheels, and splendid with the light of many jewels. Putana manifested her spiritual body and entered that chariot. The associates of the Lord welcomed her on the chariot and took her to Goloka Vrindavan. Just see. So then, Nanda Maharaj and all the Brijabasis, what are they going to do with this 20-kilometer long dead body? You can't bury it. They cut the body into pieces and burnt the body. And because the body's so massive, they had this huge bonfire, massive fire going for days and days. And because her body, because she was purified, her body was purified. And when they burnt her body, aromatic smoke came and went into the sky and formed clouds and rained aromatic rain for days, for weeks, as they're gradually burning the body of Putana. So this is very amazing. She's a demon, but she was purified by the mercy of the Lord. So Putana, Uddhava explains in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, 3.2.23, very famous verse, Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam, jighamsaya payayad apyasad vi. Lebe gatim daitriuchitam taton yam, kam vadayalum sharanam vrajema. This is Uddhava lamenting immediately after Krishna leaves this world. Uddhava says, alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he, who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. So Putana went to Goloka Vrindavan, and she is now there. Well, Prabhupada translates in the position of mother. The Sanskrit is Daitri, which basically means nurse. She is one of the nurses now of Krishna as a child in Goloka Vrindavan. So when you all nice devotees go back home to Goloka Vrindavan, when you enter Goloka Vrindavan, you may meet one nurse, and she may say, you know who I was? I was Putana. Welcome to Goloka Vrindavan. So like we said, she was, in the previous life, she was the sister of Bali Maharaj, Ratnamala. And some other Shastras say daughter. But anyway, I think it's Brahma Vaivarta Purana, did I say? One of the Puranas says sister. So the story is, when Bali Maharaj stole the universe from the demigods, and then Aditi, the mother of the demigods, prayed to the Lord to appear to get the universe back, the Lord then appeared as Vamana, the little Brahmin boy, and went and begged charity from Bali Maharaj. Just give me as much land as I can cover with 3 steps. So as he walked in Everyone saw him, and he was so beautiful, so sweet, and saintly, and charming. Everyone was captivated. And Ratnamala, the daughter, saw this child, and some motherly feeling arose. She thought, this child is so nice. I want to have him as my son. Then the whole exchange with Bali Maharaj occurred. And then Vamana took 2 steps of land and covered the whole universe. And then arrested Bali Maharaj, saying, you promised me 3 steps of land, you only gave 2. You're a cheater. And arrested Bali Maharaj, who then said, no, put your 3rd step on my head. So while Ratnamala was watching this, she got very disturbed and angry. And she thought, all right, maybe I'll have this child as my son. But if I do, I'll kill him. And in her next life, she was born as Putana. In her next life. So, you know, the anartha is the pseudo-guru, that we may take shelter of some, you know, some impersonalist or just so-called magician, or you know what I mean, some misleading spiritual, so-called spiritual teacher, and in that way get distracted from Krishna consciousness. It is not really so likely with devotees. It's not so likely. It's not impossible. It happens sometimes. But generally the devotees understand we stick with devotees, and we don't accept the teachings of people who are not devotees and who are not in our line. But of course the mind can mislead us. Any of you ever, with any of you, do your minds ever suggest that you should do something against Krishna consciousness? Did it ever happen to you once? Listen to some popular music. Kuch kuch hota hai. Did it ever happen to you? Or you look at a woman and think, oh, she looks nice, or something. Did it ever happen to you? So the mind is the more dangerous pseudo-guru of the 2 types. So how are we going to avoid being misled by our minds, or by a pseudo-guru for that matter? Just how are we going to avoid being misled? And of course there's a lot we can say about that. But one thing we'll say is we should take shelter of a real guru. A real guru. Once Prabhupada was asked, what does it mean to be sincere? And Prabhupada answered, sincerity means you'll follow each and every one of my instructions, no matter how small. This is sincerity. In other words, you don't listen to your mind at all. You just follow the instructions coming from Srila Prabhupada, from your bona fide spiritual master. And if you stick in Krishna consciousness, you stick with this principle, then you'll not become a victim of a pseudo-guru, either your mind or just some misleading, cheating person. So it's interesting. Srila Prabhupada, in talking on this subject, Srila Prabhupada referred to an experience he had as a young man. He was reading Bhagavad Gita with the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he read the purport of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 41. Who knows what is 241? Bhagavad Gita. All you Bhagavad Gita scholars, Bhakti Shastris, and well-read devotees. What's 241? It's one of the great classic verses. Vyabhasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kuru nandana bahu shaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayana. Those who are on this path are resolute in determination, and their aim is one. O Arjuna, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Ekeha, eka, one-pointed, buddhi, intelligence, consciousness. So Prabhupada read that, and he read the purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and there's one particular part which Prabhupada said when he read it, it struck him very deeply, and it was sort of like a turning point in his life, Prabhupada said, for himself. Let me read. And it is, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is stressing this very point, the need to not listen to the mind and other people, but accept the instructions of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. So let me close by reading this excerpt. Listen to this. It's very striking. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the best kind of intelligence I can have is intelligence used in the service of Krishna. Intelligence is defined as one-pointed or fixed when it is intent upon my spiritual master's instructions, such as chanting the name of Krishna, remembering his activities, and performing service to his lotus feet. My spiritual master's instructions are my sadhana, my practice, and my life, both in the beginning stages of bhakti, as well as in bhakti's perfectional stage. I desire only to follow his instructions. I accept nothing else as my life's work, even in dreams. Whether I'm happy or distressed, whether the material world remains or is destroyed, I do not care. There is no loss for me. I simply must carry out the orders of my spiritual master. Fixedness upon his orders is determined intelligence and devotional service. And only by being fixed on his orders can such determined intelligence prosper. So Srila Prabhupada said that when he read that, it struck him very deeply. And it should strike us also very deeply. And we should resolve like that. No more listening to the mind. You know, the pseudo-misleading guru figure, it's not very likely any of you get sidetracked by that. But the mind, watch out. The mind is very tricky. So let us take shelter of Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual masters, And in this way, we'll be protected. And one fine morning, we will wake up and we will find we are in Goloka Vrindavan. Goloka Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So that is our discussion for this evening. Now we will hand you over to Sweta Dweep Prabhu.